Can't wait till my office is back free.
Yeah, I'm at my kitchen table. My wife maybe take down the picture because she says it looks like a bathroom with it up. I got to take it down every time we have a meeting now. So, but yeah, all good. All good. So let's see everybody gets on here. We can get things rolling. I know George is not going to be here and Denise is running late, but we're going to start and just have her join in. We do. So I don't see.
Beth needs to be let in.
Give me just 1 second.
Okay.
I do not see her in the waiting room. It have taken me too long. Should We are all live, Mr. Bednar, whenever you are ready.
Okay, Beth, are you with us?
Sorry, I'm not seeing her in the lobby.
She says she is and has been for like 10 minutes. So I don't know if she's in the wrong link.
Okay, let me give her a text.
I'm gonna turn my light down. I have all this hair on top here. So, all right, we just stand by for a second while we wait to get Ms. Piden into the meeting. She's working with Sarah on your white right now. Denise is running a few minutes late, but we'll get started once we get Beth in. Sarah, how you doing out there? Any luck?
Yes, I'm sorry, Miss Pyden is in the meeting. Sorry about that. And it looks like we have Mrs. Aquino joining now also.
Good. Hey, Beth.
Denise,
Yep.
Frank, Denise is getting in right now, logging in. She should be on.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay.
Hey, Denise. Is, Beth, you out there?
I am.
Okay.
Hi,
Everybody
guys.
here then. Okay, we'll get started then. Let's call to order the meeting of the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education for February 22nd, 2021 at 6:35. 6:35. We'll waive the pledges this evening. Also, Mr. Sobal is excused for this evening. Going on to item B, additions, deletions. There is none for this evening. Item C, recognition presentations. Mr. Roberts.
There are no presentations this evening, Mr. Bednard.
Okay, moving on to item D, general consent agenda. Can we have a motion for the general consent agenda?
This is Jill. I'll move.
Thank you. Moved
I'll
by Ms.
support.
D'Amico,
I will support.
supported by Ms. Aquino.
Yes, I supported. Yep.
Okay, anything in the consent agenda the members would like removed, up for further discussion or questions regarding? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Ms. Pyden.
Ms. Demink-Zek,
Yes.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes, I'm still trying to hook up. Sorry, guys.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Mr. Bednard,
Yes.
Mr. Vojtovich,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Ayes all, motion carries.
Okay, Ms. Pyden, I believe we have two retirements. Resolutions to be read into the record, please.
We do. Whereas Dina Evaldi and Ellen Ziegler have served the Chippewa Valley School District faithfully and diligently for a period of 12 years as a paraprofessional and 14 years in the clerical unit respectively. Whereas Dina Evaldi and Ellen Ziegler, through their leadership, have had a positive impact on the staff, students, and the community. Whereas Dina Evaldi and Ellen Ziegler, conscientious, loyal, hardworking employees, have elected to retire. And whereas Dina Evaldi and Ellen Ziegler will be missed by all their school colleagues. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Chippewa Valley School District, not only on their behalf, but also that of the Superintendent of Schools and the administration, extend their thanks and appreciation for a job well done, as well as best wishes for the future. Be it further resolved that this resolution, having been adopted by the Board of Education of the Chippewa Valley School District on the 22nd day of February 2021, be made a permanent part of the records of this school district and a copy sent to Dina Evaldi and Ellen Ziegler as an expression of our appreciation. We, of course, wish them the absolute best in their retirement.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. And good luck to them. Okay, we'll move on to item E from the community. As always, I want to read into the record the board's rules regarding community comment. And then I believe we have 9 members that signed up to address the board this evening. So we'll read through these and we'll get started. First of all, as far as board rules for community comment, each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes duration. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Complaints against identifiable school personnel may not be expressed in an open meeting. Such complaints should first be submitted in writing to the board and aired in open or closed session according to the wish of the persons involved. The presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. may call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action, and waive these rules with the approval of the board when necessary for the protection of privacy or the administration of the board's business. So, okay, Ms. Marnia White, you have our parents there ready to go?
I do. Our first speaker is Joel Ruhlman.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Ruhlman.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Hi, we can hear you loud and clear. Thanks for joining us, and please share your comments with the board.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the board. First and foremost, these kids need to get back to school full time. You have heard this hundreds, if not thousands of times from parents in this past year. Please put a plan in place and let's stop playing games with the well-being of our kids. Enough is enough. Second, and I'm sure you have all seen it, recently there was a viral video of a school board in California that got caught talking pretty negatively about parents, mocking them for wanting their kids back in school, etc. All of them have recently resigned, as they should have. When I saw this, I was thinking to myself, is this how some of our members of our school board talk offline about us? Could some of them really be that arrogant? Then I remembered about a parent that spoke up a few meetings ago. She called in and said that a member of the CVS school board allegedly reached out to her employer and tried to basically get her fired for expressing her opinion about getting the kids back to in-person learning. This is still the United States, correct? We are still allowed to have opinions and free speech, correct? Or does that not apply to a parent reaching out to the school board member, expressing their desire to have their children back in the classroom full time? The board needs to investigate this allegation and answer to the public immediately. The secretary could address the public now and give her side of the story. Did she really call this woman's employer in an attempt to cancel her? Did she really leverage her position on the CVS school board to carry more weight on the attempt to get a parent fired? Is this a one-time thing for her, or has she done it before? And are other parents fearful to speak out? I mean, wow, this is crazy stuff. This really cannot be happening in our community, can it? Well, I decided to see if I could learn just a little bit more about the board secretary. In this very brief process, it seems she is extremely politically motivated, and her desires well surpass being just on a school board. This new cancel culture we live in is disgusting and despicable. And I'm here today too, as well, to request a formal investigation into her actions. We deserve the truth about this. Trying to get someone fired because you disagree with them is a horrible thing done only by extremely petty people. This did not need to happen if true. As an elected official, we should expect a level of decency from them and not attacks on the very people they are elected to represent because of a difference in opinion. I've listened to many of the meetings of late. I consider myself pretty well versed in politics as well, which is kind of sad because whoever thought politics would be so entrenched in a local school board who is supposed to be working to help our kids get a proper education and not playing politics. But just like so many things in this past year, I've been shocked and surprised how much power a school board actually has over the community's day-to-day life. You have the power to tell us how much education our kids can or cannot have, if we are allowed to go to work or not. And now, if this allegation is true, even leverage your position to get a parent fired from their career. I get it. A lot of these decisions are hard to make, and it's hard to please everyone. I'll tell you one thing. This past year has been a great civics lesson for many of us. We go about our day-to-day lives and hope our elected officials, especially local, are doing what's best for us and our families, and we never considered how much power you all have. Well, many of us are working hard to take it back. You had your 15 minutes of unregulated power, and it's time for a few of you to answer to the public. I'm guessing many of you will attempt to protect your own, so this whole alleged doxing incident by the secretary will probably go unchecked, which is another reason I support the current recall of some of you. These alleged actions of the board secretary were not only unbecoming of an elected member of the school board, but very immature and should not be tolerated in this society from anyone.
Ms. Ruhlman, I just want to give you a 1-minute warning. Please continue.
Thank you. from anyone, especially from an elected member of our school board. And if this allegation is true, she literally used her position on this very school board to help pursue the doxing of one of our community members that, oh, by the way, just happens to be a police officer. These allegations make everyone on the school board look bad, and I hope all of you do the right thing and immediately start an investigation into the allegations against the board secretary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ruhlman. All right, Ms. Monier, what our next community member?
Our next speaker is Jask R.
Hello. First of all,
Hello,
I would
Miss-
like to thank the board for giving me the
Yes.
opportunity to speak today. I'm a student at one of the high schools in the district. I do not see many students or teachers speak out on these board meetings. So I'd like to provide a platform.
Hello, Jask, we lost you.
Yes, I was muted by the host.
I apologize for that if I accidentally muted you.
I have
That's
heard
all right. Go ahead,
from
please.
I have heard from news networks such as the Macomb Daily, for one, that the board plans to have a 4-day-a-week in-person learning program for all students, combining the cohorts. So here I would like to express my concerns of this learning plan and attempt to persuade the board to table this topic for the future. To begin, cases in the high schools are spreading like wildfire. Dakota, for example, I know students have told me there have already been 4 to 5 positive cases. And I personally know people that had to quarantine because of the possible exposure to these people. Sending all the students in together for a longer period of time will thus raise the number of cases even more. Now, I completely understand where critics of my ideology are coming from. Some say, oh, the survival rate of COVID in kids is 99%. I completely get that, and I understand where these parents are coming from. But my concern, honestly, it's not about the students. It's more so our community as a whole. The elderly, people with pre-existing conditions, and other vulnerable people are at an extremely high risk for catching and suffering from the virus. Students that are asymptomatic or experience mild symptoms should be considered carriers, honestly, ones that infect without even knowing. In a way, just think about it. This spread can metaphorically be compared to the flu, although they are 2 completely different viruses and are not to be compared by their mortality rates. The students that are not affected but have the virus are similar to high-touch surfaces with the flu. And because you do not know you are spreading the virus, because the infectious period is before the symptomatic period, you may not know if you're actually spreading or not. Schools should be considered COVID hubs, as their students are infecting our entire community. Some may say, oh, my kid wears a mask, so this doesn't apply to them, and they're completely safe to go to school, right? No, that is partially inaccurate. According to a recent study by the CDC, single masks only block transmission by 40 to 44%, whereas double masks block transmission by approximately 95%. From in-school sources, I've been told barely anyone, if anyone, are double masking. If you say you cannot breathe in a double mask situation, you would be incorrect. You're still getting oxygen and your respiratory system is still processing the oxygen. There's no bodily physical negativities to it. If it's uncomfortable, you just have to learn to live with it for the betterment of our community as a whole. I can't understand how people can spread the virus to someone else and have that person severely suffer if it could just be the difference of how protected you were in your mask situation. I know that some have gotten both doses of the COVID vaccine, which I agree, it does reduce the risk, but it does not eliminate it. Just like every other vaccine, it will build antibodies, but not completely eliminate it. Masks should still be worn. Please do not think that this vaccine is a permanent solution. With all the new strains, nothing can keep you too protected. Just today, the United States has surpassed 500,000 deaths. 500,000 people. Just let that sink in for a moment. This is our community here at stake, not just students. I am not saying go back fully virtual, because with the amount of pressure by parents on the district, we can all agree that that is completely unattainable. We have to make sacrifices in order to not seriously jeopardize our society. This will have to be our student sacrifice. Considering all that I have conveyed to you today, to summarize, I am insisting the board here to continue our current hybrid plan and not move forward with the 4-day-a-week cohort combined plan. And I seriously urge, if not require, the board to the students to double mask. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Jessica, for your comments this evening. Okay, Ms. Meyer White, we have another community member who wants to speak this
We
evening.
do. Jessica, I apologize for accidentally muting you. Sorry about that. Our next speaker is Melissa Rice.
Hello, Ms. Rice.
You can use *6 to unmute on your phone.
Hello.
Hello, Ms. Wright. We can hear you loud and clear. Please share your comments forward.
As many of you know, I voiced my opinion at many of these meetings, and it's come to the point that the board has had a year to figure out how to get these kids back into school safely. They need to be full-time, face-to-face. We've got surrounding districts that have been in full-time, face-to-face since the start of the school year with no major shutdowns. These high school students can get on these meetings and talk about how they don't feel it's safe for the kids to go back all they want. It's because from what I've heard from other parents of high school students, these kids don't go to class, they sleep all day and do their homework later. So if they can sleep all morning, get up in the afternoon, do their schoolwork, and get passing grades, why send me back to school? Let's do everything we can not to go back to school. It's been over almost a year. The school is now going to be replacing over the summer doors in 7 of the schools, when that money could have went to plexiglass barriers to put around these desks to get these kids in school. I have a kindergartner and a 5th grader that at this point will not be attending Chippewa Valley schools next year. My kids have been put back so far behind being special ed that they have no advantage in life in Chippewa Valley schools. You guys can tell me all you want that these kids will be caught up, everything will be fine, but they won't. If you're a parent of a 5th grader that has a reading and writing disability, how would you guys feel sending your child on to 6th grade with a 2nd grade reading level because he doesn't get the assistance he needs and that he would get if he was in school full time? There are many parents that are working from home so that their children can go to school online and do virtual teaching. And many of the parents have the option that they don't work, and they chose to have their kids in CVVA before school started. Well, the parents that didn't choose to take that option should have the option to put their children in school full time. It's getting old. It's getting ridiculous. These kids need the education that they deserve. If not, give us our tax money back. We're paying to run these schools, yet my kids have stepped into school, 30 days throughout the whole school year? At one point, my kids went to school only 10 days a month in a building.
Why is the teacher getting paid?
The teachers are getting paid. My kids are getting loads of homework sent home to do on their off day. So moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas can do the work with them. I don't pay my mother to watch my children be a teacher. Yet, if my kids don't turn in that work, my kids fail that grade or that class. We need a plan, and it needs to happen now. It's done. It's over. Guess what? We're all going to get COVID. It's just like the flu. Every one of us are going to get it. It's not when, it's not It's all a matter of when are you going to get it. I've got family in the medical field that pulled their children out of Chippewa Valley schools and put their children into private schools. And they worked the front line during the horrible part of the pandemic when it all came down. Get these kids back to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Royce, for your comments. Okay, Ms. Monia White, our next community member.
Dave Pizzielli is our next speaker tonight.
Good evening, board members, officers, trustees, ladies and gentlemen. I am a resident of the Chippewa Valley School District, and I have no children who attended, but I am 78. I have 5 kids, 11 grandchildren, and 2 greats. I am also, what was that? What?
No, that's some unrelated noise from somebody's computer. Please continue. Ms. Pizzielli, please continue.
It looks like you muted, Mr. Pizzielli. If you go ahead and use *6.
Am I good now? I keep getting that message to unmute.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please continue.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that I am 78 years old and I have 5 kids, 11 grandchildren, and 2 greats. In addition, I am passionate about educating our children so they embrace principles of good citizens, which to me is the top priority of an educational system. 2 weeks ago, I attended the meeting and was censored. I hope this was accidental and not the policy of the board. I believe transparency is required even in difficult discussions where I was censored during the topic of opening up the schools. And I am in favor of the opening up the schools as soon as possible. And I'm glad to hear there was moves to begin that process. Last meeting, I heard only opposition to opening schools, at the number of cases and how they would increase when classes were open. But to me, that is to be expected, especially since everything that has been inflicted upon our society will make that happen. Masks, in my opinion, affect immune systems negatively. No one benefits from inhaling their own exhaust. Not even anyone would consider it for their car. I heard a surgeon recently say that at the end of his day, while he wears a mask throughout the day doing his work, experiences dizziness and fuzzy thinking. That's what happens to kids, in addition to just being on their own and lackadaisical in their studies. The other argument was that there isn't the space for social distancing. But in my opinion, I have heard no evidence proving that 6 feet is a magic number. In my opinion, has the question ever been asked, where's the data? And personally, I am aware there is bad science and is prevalent all over, and I haven't seen much evidence of good science, just opinions. And the media has promoted a position of fear among the population with all of their negative reporting. But what about the consequences of what has been inflicted on our children and society? Humans are social animals and need social interaction for good mental health and personal development. Without socialization, kids experience increased suicide rates that have been reported, emotional problems that even were discussed at the last meeting. I believe developmental retardation resulting in lifetime learning disabilities can be expected. Isolation deters development of herd immunity, enabling us to get over this thing. How are the kids' risk quantified and entered into the discussion? Statistics show that our youth at least are the least at risk for COVID. The 5 to 17-year-olds have the very low death rates of 0.065%. How does this factor into your discussion? And perhaps it already has. Has the board determined how the infringements of our rights have worked in this country? Compare states that have aggressively enforced lockdowns and those that have been more free to allow their citizens to exercise their own good judgment. Has the board determined, the risk is high for certain population groups, those with compromised health and the elderly. These should be given special consideration for health challenges and parental fear. In addition, consideration for the health of teachers must be considered as well. And I'm not sure what to suggest about that. But it shouldn't penalize the vast majority of the student population at the risk of just the few. I would ask for you to continue in your efforts to open the school and be a role model for your decision and have face-to-face meetings as well. Finally, on another topic, if I may, there is a movement to incorporate the 1619 Project into the education of our children. The premise of the project was that America was founded on the principle of slavery, and that occurred in 1619 when slaves were imported onto this continent. And while it is true, it is a fact that slavery was practiced in the colonies. Slaves were brought into the Jamestown colony not until 1652, not 1619. And also it's a fact that no other nation has paid so much and fight so hard to eliminate slavery around the world as the United States of America.
Mr. Pizzielli?
Yes.
I just want to give you a one minute warning. Please continue.
I just have one statement left, which is, what is the board's position on the 1619 project that, in my opinion, is based on an absurd, erroneous premise? Thank you for your time and attention and the opportunity to speak before the board. You have a blessed night.
Thank you, Ms. Pizzielli, for your comments this evening. Okay, Ms. Monier-White, can we have another community member like to speak?
We do. Patrick Russell is our next community
That's all
member.
because it's not.
Hi, how is everyone tonight?
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for joining us, and please share your comments with the board.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the board for taking the time to listen to me. I also want to thank you for your service to our district. Just to be clear, I am not in support of any recall and feel it is not right. When you guys ran for the positions you have, you did not know you would be dealing with something like the pandemic that is beyond your control. Number two, I guess, why is it that you could even consider sending our kids back to school face-to-face when you as a board cannot meet in the same room? Does that mean that you think it's not safe for you, but you deem it to be safe for our children? I'm a little confused on that. I have 3 daughters in the Chippewa Valley School District, 2 in the high school and 1 in the 2nd grade. And while I noticed that my 2nd grader struggled in the beginning of this year with learning how to use the 1 laptop that was given to our house from the district until just recently, I will say that after learning the computer, she has adapted quite well and her grades have stayed the same and only gotten better after returning to hybrid. My high schoolers, however, have been a different story. They went from being all A students to getting failing grades in most of their classes when we were entirely virtual. I attribute this to 2 items. Number 1, the fact that some, and I will stress some, of their teachers feel it is okay to only teach for 10 to 15 minutes a class and then leave them alone to do the rest of their class. And I feel the biggest reason for the secondary students struggling could be the fact that they are not required to keep their cameras on during class time. They may sign in for attendance, but then can walk away or talk on the phone with their friends, etc. There is no way to make sure they are paying attention in class if the teacher can't see if they even have their eyes open. This should be a requirement. I will say that since my daughters have returned to school 2 days a week in person as part of the hybrid program, Their grades have returned to pre-COVID levels, as I feel they have a greater responsibility to get their homework and assignments done on time, as the teachers are able to keep better track of them. Also, while I'm on that subject, maybe, just maybe, the secondary level students feel it is okay to keep their monitors off, since it seems some of the board members never seem to want to make themselves visible to the rest of us during the board meetings. Just saying. I have spoken with numerous teachers and staff at all levels in the district and have heard from them that the hybrid model is working and that there would be no way possible to maintain social distancing if we return face-to-face. You already have a shortage of teachers and staff and have more retirements announced at every meeting. And I know so many more teachers and staff that may leave if the district returns to face-to-face this year. But can you please explain to me and the other parents in the district who is going to teach our children when the teachers get sick and you have no subs or staff to step into the room? Have you guys ever considered that the virus may not affect the children as much at this point? However, as Good Morning America recently did a special on, there are new studies out that state that there has been an increase in children getting the inflammatory disease from COVID. Though kids have an easier time getting over COVID, many have struggled by being hospitalized and even have died from the inflammatory disease. This is why social distancing is imperative, and the hybrid model allows for that, while full-time face-to-face does not. Also, if COVID does not affect children as bad, it does not mean that they are not asymptomatic and can be carriers to their teachers, staff, and all of their loved ones at home who may be more susceptible to the virus, and it could even kill them. People talk about the mental state of the children in this pandemic. Can you please tell me how the child will feel if they find out they brought the virus home to a loved one and it ended up killing that loved one? That would be far more devastating to their mental state, in my opinion.
Mr. Russell, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to give you a one minute warning. Please continue.
Nope, no problem. Thank you. It seems that some people feel that a recall is necessary of some members of the board, and I'm not really sure why, as you voted on everything as a board and majority ruled. No matter what you decide as a board, not everyone will be happy. I honestly feel we may be able to lighten the board's load by just having a certified in-person vote of the parents that are currently in the hybrid model, not CVVA, as they have already made their decision for the year, on whether we should or should not return to full-time face-to-face. I will say that I think it is a bit ridiculous to return them to school full-time this year, as there is only one semester approximately left, and why chance it when we could wait until the fall, when most of our elderly community, along with our educators and hopefully a lot of other people, will be fully vaccinated by then. This will be much safer for everyone involved, and let's face it, I don't think one semester of school is going to change a student's grades by that much. I will accept whatever decision the board decides, but I have always stood by my children and tried to help them as much as possible. I know it is hard for a lot of people who work jobs, and I do too. But when we decide to have children, my wife and I, we made them our number one priority and do not treat the school district as a latchkey service. Lastly, do not be fooled by other districts in the area who are full-time face-to-face and are saying that everything is fine. They are hiding an awful lot of cases. I know several people who work in these districts and are telling me that a lot is being swept under the carpet. If you truly do care about the children, your teachers, and your staff, I implore you to consider staying hybrid until the end of the year and returning full-time face-to-face in the fall, when it will be much safer, hopefully due to a bigger part of the population being vaccinated. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Okay, Ms. Minor White, committee member.
Next, we have Tons K.
Time face-to-face in the fall.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak tonight. First, I'd like to make a statement, and then I want to project a few of my concerns. One of the parents had mentioned that the students that speak here are lazy and do not do their work, and I personally know the student, and we both attend virtual classes full-time with cameras on at all times. Cameras are here to ensure that students pay attention and can be reiterated by any of the teachers at our school. All of our teachers have made cameras mandatory for our grades. Please understand that we are hardworking students, individuals that are expressing our genuine concern, and on behalf of us, On behalf of us, we have no further interest in engaging and enabling parents to harass us in these meetings if we try to voice our opinions. Moving on to my concerns. I read that the cohorts would be combined, and I just want to say that's not the best idea, especially for the smaller schools like the 9th grade Center for CHIP and the IAM, as putting everyone on the same day in the building all at once obviously increases the number of bodies in risk. I know we want to get back to normal, but pressuring this normal back is going to cause people to start thinking that it's actually normal, so they'll stop caring as much and won't follow the social distancing rules. Also, with more people in the buildings, it'll be harder to follow the social distance rules. In addition to that, even vaccinated people are being recommended to continue small gatherings, as the vaccine only reduces the risk, it doesn't eliminate the possibility of getting COVID. Also, that's because it's not over yet. COVID is not over yet. We're not ready to go in larger groups, especially groups like high school groups and elementary groups. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Tons, for your comments this evening. I just one of the rules for our board meetings for public comment is the matters are supposed to be addressing, the board members, not all what other comments were made by prior participants. So a parent coming on and criticizing a student, or a student coming on and criticizing that parent, that's not what we're here for. We're here to hear your comments. The board is here on not what other people are saying to the board. So please, we just steer our comments in that way. It'd be greatly appreciated by us. Okay, Ms. Monier White, is there anybody else we have out there?
We do not have any other community members on the call.
Okay, I want to thank the community for their comments this evening. And with that, we will move into our next segment of the meeting, old business, item F, which we have none. Moving on to G, new business. So I'll get my computer caught up here. 1 second. Okay. Item G, new business. Item G1, approved change order summary report for January 2021. Mr. Sutherland.
The recommended motions that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the 2018 bond issue change order summary report for the month of January 2021.
Motion?
I'll move.
Moved by Ms. Aquino.
I'll support. This is Jolene.
Support by Dr. Andriasco. Rationale, please.
This work consists of changes to existing contracts for the purpose of owner requested work, deducts, code compliance, or hidden conditions on the construction and equipment projects. All amounts are within the contingency budget allocation. This report was reviewed with the Building and Site Subcommittee on Monday, February 8th, 2021, and funding will come from the 2018 Building and Site Fund.
Okay, any questions, comments by the board?
I do have some questions. As part of, we did review this in detail last week, but I wanted to make the other board members as well as the community aware of some of the large amounts. And I wanted to, I was going to ask Jeff if he maybe could go over, there was one item where we had to add new swing area, which was $6,900. And we talked about that, but Jeff, could you repeat what happened there with the swing set?
Sure, absolutely. At Mohawk Elementary School, as part of our playground improvements, we were adding a accessible swing for children that have special needs to the existing swing set. When the contractor went out to put that on the swing set, he found out that the diameter of the existing pipe on the existing swing set was not large enough to support that swing by code. He did look at another set of swings that were on the campus, but unfortunately those swing sets were too tall for that accessible need swing to be attached to it. So we were in the position to have to look another way. So we're looking to replace the existing swing so that we can attach that accessible swing to it.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. And that was not a part of the original bid process, right? Because we assumed, or we thought that the current frame could be would be adequate, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we've added this across the district. It was only this area, and then at Cheyenne we had an issue with the swings, but for the most part we did pretty good at all the swing sets this summer. But this was one that it was very hard to tell. It was within a half inch of being the right diameter, but those folks do know the codes very well and did want to make sure to point that out to us and didn't want to take on the liability for doing that.
I also wanted to ask about the Erie Elementary maintenance. We ended up having to spend $32,162, but we had a credit of 81,000, so the net effect was savings, I think. But could you just explain what happened with the doors, the metal doors, and why there was ended up with a credit on that?
Sure, absolutely. So there's two types of doors that we typically use in the district. They're the hollow metal doors that are usually more of an interior type door. And then there's the FRP doors, the fiberglass reinforced doors, which are typically more exterior grade doors. They hold up a little better to the abuse and the salt. So at Erie Elementary School, we were looking to replace a couple of interior sets of doors to address a fire code reason. And originally the documents called for FRP doors. And it was a substantial savings in the neighborhood of $20,000 to put hollow metal doors inside the building versus the FRP doors. So that just seemed to make a lot of sense. It did compromise any longevity to the district, and most people won't even notice the difference when they look at those doors. The other thing was on the maintenance building that's on the administration campus. There's, I think, about 7 doors there that are being replaced. Those doors currently are hollow metal. They don't take the same kind of abuse that school doors do because we're not excessively salting those for slip reasons. So in talking to the maintenance department, they felt it was to the district's best advantage to keep those as hollow metal. They've lasted for over 20 years now. There's no reason to not. And they would like to see those savings be reserved for future mechanical equipment. That would be more important for the district to keep buildings running.
Right. I just wanted to point out that the net effect of this change summary is a $46,482 credit. So the net effect is still positive to the district and adds to our contingency balance. That's it. Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Other questions by the board? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, Ms. Pyden, please.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Mr. Bednard,
Yes.
Ms. Demink-Zek,
Yes.
Mr. Vojtovich,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Eyes all, motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item G2, approved bond resolution 2021 refunding bonds. Mr. Sutherland.
So recommended motions that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the bond resolution authorizing the issuance by the school district of its 2021 refunding bonds in order to refinance all or a portion of the school district's outstanding Michigan School Loan Revolving Fund bonds, and that the reading of the resolution be waived.
I'll move.
I'll support Joe.
Moved by Ms. Aquino and supported by Ms. Pyden. Rationale, please.
No, it was supported by Jill.
It was Jill that supported.
Okay, supported by Mr. McZack. My mistake. Please continue.
Rationale: an estimate has been prepared by the district's financial advisor, the PFM Group, showing that refunding the Michigan School Loan Revolving Fund bonds could result in savings to the taxpayers of approximately $3.9 million in interest costs, depending on the market conditions at the time of the sale for the 2021 refunding bonds. The potential savings exist because current interest rates are lower than the interest rates on the Michigan School Loan Revolving Fund bonds. Adoption of this resolution authorizes proceeding with the sale and issuance of the 2021 refunding bonds if determined to be in the best interest of the school district.
Okay, questions or comments by the board?
This is, I just wanted to point out that this is a practice that we have done before. We've, entered into in the past with our bonds in order for us to save money. So refinancing them at the rate that they currently are makes sense for the district, and will save $3.9 million for the district. Really the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions by the board? Okay, so Scott, I just have a quick question on this too. And as Denise said, we've done this, saved tens of millions of dollars over our bond programs through the decades now. But now off the balance at the end of this, does this shorten the time frame for the payback, or how does it, we realize that 3.9 million savings for the community? Where does that?
Typically with something like this, it shortens the length of time that we pay our bonds. So the savings will occur mainly towards the end of the bond, where we'll just levy less money at the end of the bond for the savings. So that's how the projection works. Again, the whole premise behind this is the minimum interest rate in the Michigan School Loan Revolving Fund is 3%. And right now we can, for the most part, refinance this debt for around 2%. So if you look at a roughly 30-some million dollar refunding, it's a lot of money to save when you're stretching it out over several years. So the main savings will occur, to answer your question, Mr. Bednard, in that it'll shorten the life of the amount that we pay over the life of the bonds at the end.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments by the board? Okay, if no further questions, we'll call a vote, please. Ms. Pyden?
Ms. Aquino?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Demingzak?
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko?
Yes.
Mr. Bednard?
Yes.
Mr. Vojtovich?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Ayes all, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, moving on to H, Union Communications. I don't know if any of our labor leaders would like to address the board this evening.
Mrs. Levine is on the call, but she said she does not need to address the board this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any other union leadership would like to speak to the board this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item I, administration reports. Mr. Roberts.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Bednard. I'm going to make a report to you, to the Board of Education right now. And so if, Sarah, if you could pull that up, please. I've been doing these at every board meeting, and the purpose of these is to explain to the board and to the community who is online this evening where we are in our educational plan, how COVID has impacted our school district, and how we envision moving forward. So what I'll begin with is, Sarah, if you could move it forward, is just kind of review some of the data points that we look at every board meeting. So I think that you get a good understanding of COVID and how it's impacting us. So these are just raw numbers of cases in our community since November. And what you'll see here is a pattern of November actually was the highest month. It peaked on December 2nd and then since then declined in both the townships we serve. And once again, these numbers reflect the entire townships. Our school district does not serve the entire townships. We have multiple school districts in both Clinton and Macomb townships. So you can see where we're headed in February with a significant drop since the high in November. And these numbers in February really reflect where our communities were in May and June when we came out of the stay-at-home order. So the numbers are declining over time. So that's a very good sign. Sarah, if you could proceed, please. So now these numbers are Macomb County numbers, not just our townships. And the same pattern is true, and this pattern really is reflected throughout our state. So at this point in time, the 7-day average is down to 56 cases per day countywide, and that's a continued downward trajectory. So we expect, if things go as they are now, that they'll continue to do that. And this is positivity rate. And you can see where we are now at 3.9%. And as I mentioned earlier, December 2nd was kind of the peak of COVID. And the positivity rate was significantly higher. So we are in the lowest possible rate related to positivity rate. We're in a low category in Macomb County. So these are all wonderful signs. These are things that we've told, I've told both you as the board and our community that we were paying attention to over time, and we would use these data points to kind of drive decisions. So if we go ahead, Sarah, we can talk more specifically about COVID and its impact right in our schools since we've opened as a hybrid. So on if you're looking at the right side of the screen, you'll see when we first opened January 20th through February 5th, which was the Friday before the last board meeting. You can see the number of cases, the number of people quarantined, and the number of people quarantined from within our schools, but for outside reasons. So, and if you look at the left side of the screen, you'll see the next 2-week period. And please remember that the 1 week in this 2-week period includes a week which we were off, which cases were still reported during that week, but we were not in school during that week. So the elementary level, during that time, just 1 case was reported, and that resulted in the quarantining of 12 students in an elementary building and 2 staff members. And also during that 2-week period, we had 15 elementary students quarantined only for the reason of outside exposure, not to exposure within a school building. So if we go forward, we'll look at the secondary data. This data is a little bit curious, but I don't think necessarily that surprising. On the right is our first 2 weeks of being open with 4 cases and 39 students or staff quarantined, and 32 quarantined outside of school. And then on the left-hand side is the secondary data we had 9 positive cases in the 2-week period within our secondary schools. Only 8 quarantines resulted from the 9 cases, and we had 37 students and or staff quarantined due to exposure outside school. So just to make sure everyone understands this, the first 2 data points are about the positive cases within our school, and then who was quarantined because of exposure to those cases within the school, whereas the third data point are people that just have exposure to someone outside of school and they're quarantined. So they were not exposed within our school. Now, I think an important point to make here is that to this date, since we've been back, none of those in quarantine have become positive. Now, with some of these numbers, there is still some time, and the February 8th, the February 19th numbers from last week, and that someone could be positive, but that has not been the case from the first 2-week period, nor with where we are today. So that's a good sign, and that's kind of supports what we've learned about schools over time. So those are all the data points. Do our board members have any questions about those data points before I go on?
Ron, this is Jill. I just have one quick question.
Sure.
So this is out of how many approximately?
Oh, well.
Yeah, it's a big number, I know.
Right. Well, we have about 14,800 students. 2,500 are in CVVA, so they're not likely to be in here. So the 14,800. So it's over 12,000 kids.
But then plus staff?
Plus staff.
Would be, so about 15,000?
That would probably be close, yes.
Right. Okay. So we're just looking at this. So we're looking at what's on the screen now: 9 positive cases, 8 quarantined out of 15,000.
Right. So on a percentage basis, these are very low percentages.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Anything else before we proceed? Okay. So Sarah, if you could go forward. So we've looked at the new CDC guidelines and the things that are still required to make it safe to return. And they still by the same things we've been talking about since the beginning of the year: mask, social distancing, good hygiene, which we have been able to account for in our school, and proper ventilation. And what people don't probably know is that due to bond issues over the years, we have always upgraded our ventilation systems. And so we do have up-to-date equipment, and our maintenance department this year has even changed the settings on the equipment so that the exchange of airflow is greater. So the air completely turns over within spaces in a quicker time than how it was set in the past. So these are really important things that we adhere to keep our students and our staff safe. So if we could move forward, please. So thank you, Sarah. Our goal always has been to increase face-to-face learning, and which could be through the number of days students go to school in a week or to the number of hours they're in school, or a combination thereof. Along the way, in each of these presentations, I have talked about how we have assessed our current plans and our procedures and how we can continue to ensure safety, which of course is extremely important. I mean, not only is learning important, but safety is extremely important in the operation of schools. So, all right, so what I would like to do now is just kind of give a context to what I'm talking about. So Sarah, if you could move it forward a slide, please. Because sometimes what's forgotten is where we've been, how decisions were made, why decisions were made, and what this all comes together to kind of paint a picture of our story this year as the Chippewa Valley Schools in dealing with a pandemic. Every district has a different story because there are different factors that impact school districts, and we have our own set of circumstances. So, so some of this you've heard before, and maybe to some people who are online tonight, they haven't heard this. So I think it's important to review this. As you know, our school plan was finalized in August of this year. We worked on it through the month of July and the beginning of August. And our plan, the most important components of our plan at that time were our protocols we would put in place for both the hybrid and a remote learning option. Now, a remote learning option, obviously you don't need the protocols because the students are at home. But if you're going to bring kids into school, you need to have protocols, safety protocols in place. And we finalized this plan to do this in August. And just thinking back to that time, it was a time of great uncertainty. As you live through what we're living through, and you look at it in the rear view mirror, you understand things a little bit better. But at that time, it was a time of great uncertainty because as we put our plan together during the month of July and into the beginning of August, COVID was on the increase. We were unsure, as were many districts, on how we would handle this in our schools and how this would look. And there was a great deal of questioning about whether or not we would be able to keep people safe. We had no data on which to really make decisions. And we were making these decisions on our own, as was every other school district in the state and possibly in our nation. So what we decided at that time to ensure maximum safety was to start our schools in a hybrid. We never really at that time considered a full-on traditional model. It was in our plan, but we were really talking about both hybrid or a remote model at the time. And that's because of the uncertainty of keeping people safe. Could we do this in a hybrid? We knew we could do it, of course, in a remote setting, but could we do this in a hybrid? So what we decided at that time was to start, and this came from a recommendation from me, which was developed with our leadership team, our administrative team. And we started our year in a remote setting, and the board approved that. I believe it was August 10th for that to start the school year. Now, we also thought that this is not where we intended to stay the whole year. You know, depending upon COVID's impact on our community, we were always looking for opportunities to return to in-person learning because we know that's where we as an educational institution do our best work. That's what our community expects. And that's what's good for our kids. It's even good for our teachers to teach that way. So we look for opportunities to return to an in-person setting. And we found that opportunity, and we found it in the month of October. So we set a date, I can't remember which board meeting, but we set a date to return our students to in-person learning in the month of October at the elementary level. We came back at the next board meeting after that one, and we set a date to start our secondary students. And things went well at the beginning in October. COVID was still manageable. We have 2 district nurses who are full-time dealing with COVID. So they investigate all exposures, all positive cases. They work with the health department. They keep us really informed of what's going on in our schools. So what happened was then we had our date to start our secondary students, but in November, and as you saw from the last data points, November was the peak. So at that point in time, we delayed the start of our secondary schools from starting in an in-person learning format or in the hybrid. And it wasn't too long after we did that, the governor came out and put a pause on all in-person learning at the secondary level. And it was at a board meeting in November then that we decided we would pull our elementary students out of hybrid and put them back into remote learning. And that's just due to the increase in the number of cases and its impact on our schools. As I mentioned, we work with our nurses on a daily basis. They really are our boots on the ground, so to speak. They're able to really give us a clear picture of what's going on in our schools. We thought it was the safest thing to do. We were also told at the time of the potential for an increase in COVID in the community due to Thanksgiving celebrations and other holiday celebrations up through Christmas in December, and that was a contributing factor. So we paused our elementary hybrid program in November, and we set dates to return both elementary to hybrid and to start secondary and hybrid in January. So we were able to meet those dates. We started our elementary at January 20th and our high school at hybrid on January 25th. So we also have some special education programs such as CLP and ECSE, and their program's a little bit different. Right now they're in school 4 days per week. So their program is different than the other students at this point in time. But doing all of this, just as we have said all year that we would continue to review and monitor data, we never saw anything that we were doing as necessarily the end. In other words, this is where we would get, and this is where we would stay. Because we are always looking for more opportunities to give our students more in-person instructional time. So I've sent a memo to or notice to the community that right now we are looking at how we can safely increase our instructional time for our students. So Sarah, if you would move forward, please. I want to talk about some of the factors that have led us to determine that we need at this point in time to look for more opportunity for in-person instruction. So, and some of these are pretty self-explanatory. These are things that I've talked about just prior to this point in this presentation. COVID-19 continues to decrease. It has decreased since the high at the beginning of December. We have continued to monitor it. We've returned our students to a hybrid. I have told the community many times that we would pay attention to this, this data, and we would make a decision based on this data. So we're in a good place right now with the level of COVID in our community. One thing we do know that has come clear from the research, no one's refuted this that I've seen yet, both nationally and from with our experience in our schools, is transmission is very low. We can point to very few cases where we think that transmission may have occurred person to person since we have been in hybrid, and that includes the time that elementary was in hybrid in October and November. So that's very positive. It's not occurring in school. Another thing I think that makes a difference for us right now is that vaccines are more readily available. And this coupled with low community spread means that hospitalizations are less likely to occur for vulnerable populations, or if someone who is vulnerable needs hospitalization, it's available to them. If you remember back to the beginning of this, when we went on a I don't want to call it a lockdown, a stay-at-home order, we'll call it that. The reason we did that was because of the level to which this disease is contagious, and there was a great concern that this would, if people became contagious, who were considered to be healthy people, this would spread to people who were not, and this would flood hospitals with people who needed service, and then they can't get service, and that's a recipe for disaster. And that is, with vaccines being more readily available for the vulnerable populations, that's a plus for us opening schools. That works in our favor. We've also, as a school district, worked hard to provide our staff with opportunities to be vaccinated. We had a partnership with Henry Ford Hospital because we have a close relationship with them through programs in our school district and different committees. We work that they provide support to our committees. So we were able to have a partnership, and we put out notice to our staff. At the time, we didn't know quite what was going to happen because they were still developing how they could serve us, but they wanted a number. We had over 600 staff respond to our inquiry who wanted to be part of the Henry Ford plan. We had 460 staff members receive invitations for vaccinations through Henry Ford, and many of those have those scheduled, have received their first doses. So that has really been a strong partnership with us in order to support our staff to be safe in the classroom. We had 130 of those people who did not qualify. And it really came down to having medical record numbers with the hospital, who did not have medical record numbers with the hospital. And we have them on another list, and we're working through with a local drug chain, a pharmacy chain, to have those people vaccinated. And they are making significant progress with that list of 130 people. So that puts us in a good spot. And I just noticed through social media, I do not have solid numbers on the rest of our staff being where they are with being vaccinated, but we were able to, and our staff was able to seek this opportunity through what our HR department was able to coordinate with Henry Ford. So that is, to me, is a very positive factor for us. Social distancing upon a return obviously is going to be decreased. We do fit into a category with CDC that allows for that decrease of distance in social distancing, but we do have a lot of factors that will help mitigate possible rise in cases, and we are really vigilant about our school operations. And I've heard this from our building administrative leaders in this building, and from talking with building principals about the sort of the atmosphere in schools and how our students are responding to following guidelines. So we believe that we can mitigate the loss of distance in some circumstances. So the other thing that I would like to mention is, this came up in one of the public comments about masking, in the study that said double masking provides 95% prevention in being exposed to COVID. We have plenty of PPE for the return of our students to schools. We have enough masks that every student in our schools, in all of our schools, K-12, could double mask twice a day and stay protected that way. So we do have that option for those who would like further protection. We have masks, and we're ready to provide them to whoever might need them. So I see that as positive. So Sarah, if you just move forward, please here. So what might this look like? Our current hybrid program, we really believe, is safe, and it has been successful. I think that's just proven by how we're able to operate. And so we're very happy with that. So we have had success. I will say, as the numbers really increased in the community in November, that became more difficult to maintain. And hence, that's the reason we pulled our students out of the hybrid program. Currently, it has been very successful in the 3 weeks that we've been back. We also have strong school guidelines. I know that our central office leaders who work with our building principals meet with them quite often, minimally weekly, and always talk about the guidelines, how they're being implemented, and do they need to be modified, and what kind of success we are having with them. So it's a constant conversation topic because it's important. If we're going to be in person, these things have to work. We also know that as we look to go forward, we're really going to need support from our parents. They're going to be key in here as we increase, because our position right now is our goal is, of course, is to add days and hours to in-person instruction. So we are considering some schedule changes from what students are currently used to. And we think that those scheduling changes can help mitigate the spread of the virus. It can help us maintain more social distancing, and it can allow us to continue to successfully contact trace. Now, we are working with our employee groups on some of our ideas. So we're having an exchange of ideas of how to do this. But as we move through this, we're always entertaining new ideas. That's really important because we're learning as we go. So with what we're looking at right now, we are looking at an increase in the number of days our students will attend school, our secondary students, and we're looking at, in fact, all of our students, K-12, and we're also looking at how we can tweak the schedule in order to just ensure that we're going to be successful. So that's going on right now. Meetings were held today, and meetings will continue to be held this week, because what we really hope to do is to have a more firmed up plan by next week to present to the board. So the key in all this is to keep a safe school environment, and we need to instill confidence in our school community that this will be safe. Anyone who has listened to our feedback from our community over the course of this, you can see that our community has a wide range of beliefs regarding COVID and its impact and the danger of COVID and how best to stay safe. We heard that tonight in the about 8 comments we heard. We heard from people who didn't think it was safe to go back, to people who think we should go back. So we have to instill confidence in all of our stakeholders that what we're doing, we can do safely and is good for kids. And we do know that in-person instruction is good for kids, but we need to keep them safe while we do that. So if we just go to the next slide, which is what next, and I'll wrap it up here and I'll entertain questions from the board. So right now we're working on a proposed in-person schedule by level. As I mentioned just a minute ago, we're engaging our employee groups. We're working with you, our Board of Education. We'll bring you our recommendation for how we think this can best be done, and we hope to do that next week. So as of right now, we have no board meeting scheduled for next week, but I have communicated with you and spoken with Mr. Bednard on our hopes to have this in place, at least our recommendation that you would need to hear about and you would need to give final approval to, and we're looking to do that on a day next week. So with our parents, we'll keep you in the loop. If we're going to hold a special meeting next week, which is our intention, we will put information out to our community so that if you're so inclined, you can attend that meeting through our streaming process and see exactly what's going on. We do have target dates. We have target dates of March 10th and March 15th. So we have time to get this done and get this in place and give our parents the time they need to make adjustments in the schedules that they currently operate by or under, so that they're prepared for any changes which have the possibility to be approved by our board. So that's where we've been, that's where we're headed, and that's why we think we can head this way. So with that, any of our board members have any questions about the process or anything like that? Now is a good time.
Mr. Bednard, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, for sure, Beth. Hey, Ron, can we take down the, yeah, there we can see, I can see who's talking. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Pyden.
Okay. I know that prior to our winter break last week, there had been some communications about self-quarantines from vacation, depending on where people had vacationed. Did we have any substantial number of self-quarantines today?
Yes, that's a good question. The protocol for that was if you traveled out of the country, you were required to quarantine upon your return. I think there were also rules from the government about testing and things like that before you got on a plane, when you got back. So I'm not sure. I would have to defer to anyone who's been in communication with building level administration if you've heard anything about that.
Okay. And when we have those quarantines, do those quarantines also appear on our dashboard?
I cannot answer. So Paul or Marina, can you one of you unmute if you have some knowledge?
Sure.
Otherwise we can get.
Yeah, the self quarantines would not show up on a dashboard because the dashboard is going to report positive cases within our schools, and so those are self quarantines that are not reported. So I did not hear any information today that was overly impactful to our buildings about self quarantines at the secondary level.
And the same is true for elementary. I've not heard of any families or staff members that have traveled out of the country that were required to self quarantine at this time.
Okay, great. And then one of the CDC requirements is smaller class size, and we have about 17% of our students in the CVVA. So theoretically, we would have a decrease of 17% in our classrooms. But is it accurate that in some of our high school classes, we're still having in excess of 35 students, and that the desks are such that they're sitting to one of those small tables?
The max number of students that could be in any of our classes is 35. So that goes in the CVVA, not in the CVVA. So the likelihood of classes being at 35 are extremely low at this point. So we definitely cannot exceed that number by rule. The table situation, some of our schools have 2-person tables versus individual desks, if that's what you're referring to, I think.
Yes.
So there still is spacing, but they would be closer together than they obviously typically are when they're sitting one per desk.
Okay. And then aside from scheduling, what are we looking at in terms of mitigation factors about bringing all kids back at once?
Well, one thing we are looking at, and this is just real initial. So I don't want to send a message to anyone who's on this meeting that this is what's going to happen. Is we're looking, one of the potentialities is not having lunch in school, because that is a time in which exposure is at the greatest point, when students are unmasked. So that is one of the major ways we're looking at how to really mitigate the potential spread of the virus. Now, having said that, because I don't want anyone to leave this meeting, if they're on, with any preconceived notion that might make you think that the program is not going to offer a lot. What we're looking at is a program that really does offer our students substantial number of hours in school. So it will greatly increase the number of hours compared to the hybrid program. So even if we were to run a program, possibly at some levels without lunch, it would be a strong program offering many hours or many more hours of education. And the lunch issue, because data shows us that spread is greater amongst older kids. And part of that just might be true to the fact that they have more active social lives outside their homes. We're really considering that more at the secondary level. So, and we're looking for the ability to, if we do have lunch in school at elementary level, of increasing our space in order to distance kids more. So we want to, especially at lunch. I mean, that's the time when kids have masked off. That's a time in which it's probably a greater potential for the spread of the virus. So that's important to us. And I think those are the things we're looking at that will instill confidence in a broad range of people and their views of COVID and the degree to which they're comfortable with being in the proximity of other people and becoming infected. So.
Okay.
But,
And I just have one, and this is an easy one. April 1st is the day for that the new quarter starts, correct?
Yeah, I think it ends. Is that right? The high school is March is a trimester mark at the elementary level. I think high school ends at March 1st because I think the new quarter starts on the following Monday after Easter when we return. That's so.
Okay, thanks.
And then, right, Paul? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then elementary is on trimesters.
That's right. So there's a date in March. Marina, do you know the trimester date in March?
Yes, March 15th starts third trimester.
Okay.
Thank you.
You said that was easy, but you're asking me. The others they know these dates better than I do, but I was close. So do other board members have questions about what's been presented this evening and what we're thinking? Do you have suggestions?
Yeah, Ron?
Sure.
The target dates in March. So those dates are dates that we're targeting to get back to full face-to-face. Is that correct?
What do you mean by full face-to-face?
5 days face-to-face?
That's correct. But we are looking
to be full face-to-face. I guess let me ask you that question first.
I'm sorry, I was talking and I missed your question.
What else could be considered full face-to-face then?
Well, what people think is full face-to-face is they think our traditional model. So that means our typical bell schedule of 7:15 in the morning till 2:11 or something like that for the high school in the afternoon. So, and that's a prescribed 6 period day with a number of minutes in every single period. We're looking to kind of tweak that schedule because, as I mentioned, we're trying to figure a way to expose kids less at lunchtime, just because of our extreme numbers of students we'll have in the school, the high numbers we'll have. Furthermore, there's a little piece out there of trying to deal with students who might be quarantined. And is there a way that we can provide some service to them? So what we are not proposing right now is the traditional model of our in-person instructional plan. But having said that, what we are talking about is a very robust model. And if I can give you an example, because sometimes another local district is held up to the standard that people think we should achieve. In other districts that are around us, in many of them, the students do have a shortened day in their what is this year their traditional program. They're not there the same number of hours that they have been in past years because it's the way they've structured their program to meet the kids who are both in a virtual environment and those students that are in an in-person environment. So this is true of school districts across Macomb County, across the state. So we're looking at something that is less hour-wise than what we've done in the past.
So a traditional school day, 5 days minus the lunch is what we're saying.
Well, and yes. I'll go with that, but there might be some other minor tweaking in that we need to do. And that's kind of what's being discussed. So I want to be careful not to get out ahead and say, this is exactly what it is, because we're talking with others, and I don't want to say that we've just decided this and others don't have input. I think that they need to have input. So, but you basically, yes. I can give you a basic yes to that, Mr. Witovich.
Why are we still looking at the case numbers instead of the actual numbers? I mean, like I said before, I mean, if we could compare it to the yearly influenza, which mysteriously our government chooses not to post those this year for some reason, I don't understand. But the numbers you posted tonight are a fraction of what we, on every level, are a fraction of what the yearly influenza is. But yet we keep on talking about the numbers as COVID. We're only looking at case numbers, which we're not even looking at the serious, which would be the hospitalizations and the deaths. Cases, I mean, if you get the flu, it's not that big of a deal unless you're in the hospital or you can die from it, things like that. Okay. But a lot of people get the flu and it's just one of those things, they get over it and they're on with their life. Same with COVID. A lot of people are just getting it and they're moving on. So I don't understand why we're looking at the case numbers compared to the actual hospitalizations and the death numbers, when even those are a fraction of what we would deal with the yearly influenza, yet we don't shut our schools down every year for the yearly influenza, but we are for this, and we seem to be all worried about this when I'm not sure where we're coming from here. The science backs this up, the evidence backs this up, and anybody that thinks different, I would have to say, can you get me that science, and legitimate science, not just the unconfirmed cases or claims or whatever, or the what ifs, things like that. I mean, it's actual science that would support something that I'm saying here.
Yeah, Robert, that question probably is a really good question that I can't answer. Since the beginning of this, we've worked with our health department, with guidance from the state of Michigan, with the medical director of the Macomb County Health Department, and this is the information that we review. So I can't answer why we're not reviewing other information.
Okay, I just feel that the major problems we have here are because we're doing this all wrong, and whether it be from the health departments or whatever, it's being done wrong, and we're not looking at the proper stuff when we could avoid almost all this by just looking at this the proper way, kind of the way we do with everything else, instead of just saying, oh, it's a huge pandemic, let's all be afraid. And the science supports that right now we shouldn't. There's always going to be a fear, but not to this extent. So.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Hi. Is there any chance for this plan, or maybe any thoughts of in the future of expanding the space in the CVVA for parents who are uncomfortable with their children spending more time in the school buildings?
Well, I'm gonna go to the people who schedule everyone in the CVVA, because they best can answer this. And I'll start with Paul with the high school and how that looks there, and then we'll go to Marina and she can talk about the elementary experience of that. So why don't you start, Paul, please?
Sure. Dr. Andriashko, the CVVA, the challenges that we faced are based on the fact that we use our own staff to provide the instruction in the virtual academy. So at the secondary level specifically, what that means is that we have teachers who are teaching classes throughout their day, both in the CVVA and in person instruction, whether it's hybrid model or in face-to-face. So right now, you can't create space in one or the other. So we have moved probably, I'm going to estimate now and say about over 90% of all families who have requested to move in between the CVVA and our hybrid model, we've been able to grant those moves. In doing so, we are literally at a point where we have no space available in many of our grade levels across our schools. So the reason for that is at the middle school level, for example, our CVA teachers are teaching kids from all 4 middle schools. So they will have students in their classroom from all 4. So just because some students want to move in or out doesn't mean you're going to have enough of a clean swap to dissolve sections or create new sections that would be in the opposite format, if that makes sense. At the high school level, we have a lot of our required courses are now at capacity in either the CVVA or in in-person classes. So being able to create schedules for those movements at this time is nearly impossible to give kids really what they need. It doesn't mean it's 100% impossible, but I will tell you that it's more unlikely than likely, and it's very challenging. So to be able to offer that would be, it really wouldn't be fair, to be honest with you, because we wouldn't be able to create schedules for kids that make sense.
Plus you have students that are in the middle of courses, so they need to stay with certain courses, right?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, even if we could move students, I would probably still be an advocate, to be honest with you, to not move many kids. And it's exactly for Mr. Roberts is stating, that at this point, to move somebody, you'd be changing all 6 of their teachers at the secondary level. So now you'd be trying to match up classes. You'd be trying to find ways to assess those students when we're already halfway through a term, and being able to assess them fairly is something that would be, I'd say, very challenging, to say the least, to the teachers who would be obtaining those students this late in a semester.
So just to be clear, it's highly unlikely.
Yes.
And I can say the same for elementary. It really is exactly the same. The difference at the elementary is, of course, that we're on trimester marks, and typically a student has the same teacher for most of the school day. But the unique factor at the elementary level is that we have staff members that teach both in person and teach in the virtual academy, and that would be a specials teacher. That could be a support staff member, a TC, a resource room teacher. So because we have staff that really plugs in where we need them to support our virtual academy students, and we have maximum class sizes, it really does limit the movement. At the elementary level, at this point, we have about 20 families, or 20 students, I should say, that we have not been able to place in CVVA. And then on the flip side, we have about 30 that have requested to exit at the trimester mark. So we do have one more exit window, if you will. But again, it doesn't mean that just because one student exits, you have an exact pairing for another to enter. So the great part of our plan is that we have our own staff members that are teaching the virtual academy, but that does also limit us as we move further into the school year, because we reach those class maximums.
And then just to add on, Marina made a good point. When we made our cutoff date of accepting moves, we had very similar numbers at the secondary level. So when you think about the number of kids at each level, I believe we were in the teens of students that we were not able to accommodate, which we're very proud of.
Thank you.
I just have one follow-up to some of the questions that Dr. Andriashko had asked. Does it become any easier to go between the CVVA and a traditional classroom if the moves are happening at the trimester or the semester, or not really?
It makes it easier from a scheduling standpoint, because now you've finished a grading period and you're able to upload and document that grading period. However, for the student and for the teacher, it's always a transition, because there is no guarantee that that CVVA class is on the exact same point or at the exact same point as the hybrid schedule. So of course, there's going to be a learning curve and some time to adjust to either in the CVVA or out of the CVVA.
Okay, thank you.
And at the secondary level, it's the same thing. And Beth, Ms. Pyden, that's when we made all of our changes at the secondary level was at the semester break, which is when we returned to the hybrid model. And so that was our window of opportunity, really was the 2 to 3 weeks that surround the semester break. And that's when we moved probably close to 200 students in or out of the CVVA. So I do want to make sure that we are clear that the end of a quarter is very different than the end of a semester. So although we're going to come to the end of third quarter, that does not really create a good opportunity for kids to switch, because you still won't be able to match their schedules. and you won't have a fair way to assess them for only a quarter because we don't issue quarter credits, especially at the high school level. We give 0.5 or half credits for a semester class, which is 2 quarters.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are the CVVA teachers or the in-person teachers, are they doing only one or the other, or are we asking them to do double duty?
It's not quite double duty at the secondary level, Mr. Wojciechowicz. So a teacher has 5 periods in their day. So a couple of those periods might be virtual academy hours, and the other hours might be in-person hours. So when you say double duty, are some of our teachers doing both? Yes, they are, but they're not doing both at the same time.
Have we gotten any feedback on that? I mean, seeing that our teachers, I mean, they signed up, they went to school and they signed up for in-person. And we asked them, because of the pandemic, which was a need, it was an emergency situation, but they had to learn almost a whole new area of their career. Now all of a sudden we're asking them to do both. I mean, are we getting any feedback? Are they okay with doing that, or?
You know, I think it's been a huge transition. It's a great question. And I can't say enough about the job the teachers have done. And you're absolutely right. They've been asked to essentially recreate how they educate. And they're doing it while simultaneously, in many cases, teaching in a traditional model. And so, you know, the feedback is, yes, it's been extremely challenging. And they're doing a remarkable job. So I can also say in the same breath that because of the efforts that our teachers are making, when you hear our CVVA parents talk about the quality of instruction they're getting in our virtual academy as opposed to other districts who are using outside providers, I can tell you that they're getting a very high quality virtual education. All that being said, you know, we're a public school district who believes in in-person education is the best, and so I'm not gonna say that it's better than in person. And our teachers, as you stated, are very well versed and trained in how to do that expertly, and they're doing everything they possibly can to show that same expertise in the virtual model, and they've stepped up to an enormous challenge.
I think Paul said it perfectly. If anything, they've exceeded our expectations. Our teachers have really learned to adapt and make the best of a situation that was unexpected. To see some of the great things that they're doing in a virtual capacity when they really did not have that training, that's not how they were taught to teach, has just been impressive. And, you know, we just can't praise our teachers enough for the way that they've been able to adapt, whether they're teaching virtual all day or they're bouncing back and forth between the hours that they teach. They've done an extremely wonderful job.
I would agree. I feel their aggravation. I see some of the obstacles they have to face every day, and yeah, I feel bad for them. But I feel that they are doing a great job. I have to praise our teachers.
Frank, I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Roger.
So, Ron, in your email to the parents that was sent out, you briefly touched on fall and whether or not we will be offering in-person learning and whether or not we will be offering a CVAA. What, can you expand a little bit on that? I mean, have we decided that we will, for sure, barring any guidance or restrictions from the state, that we will have full-time?
Yes.
And whether or not, you know, that if you're enrolling in the CVVA, that we're not running into this issue next year, that we're having a choice. We're going to be putting this choice out there again. And are both parties going to actually get a choice?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to survey our parents and ask them their thoughts on whether that they need a virtual environment. We have talked about offering virtual education in the past. We do have students who leave our school district who are educated in other places because they seek out a virtual program. So one thing that might come out of this is Chippewa Valley having its own virtual program far into the future to meet a need in the community. Not every family structure works best with what we offer in traditional public school with, you know, stringent bell schedules and days of the week and all that. And so we might really fill a need and offer that program to our kids. So, but we will, for the short term, we want to find out, you know, it's almost the concern level. Some people will still have a concern about returning to school in the fall, and we want to be able to meet their needs in our school district. So with that, we'll do the survey, see what the need is there. As we go forward, we'll have to think of the kind of like the rules of entering the program and exiting the program and all that, because we need to protect the district as well as offer a good quality program to our students who want to participate in our programs. And then is the question about going back in the fall. Yes, this is what we expect to do, is we expect to be full on traditional in the fall. And when you listen to reports about all the things that would contribute to whether or not you could have a full-on program in the fall, what I hear is, yes, we should offer a full-on traditional program in the fall. That's what we are gearing up for.
But we are gearing for March, right?
Yeah, that's the future. That's a little more long range.
I'm sorry,
right now we're gearing for March.
This is still my question here.
I'm sorry.
So I guess I was with you until I heard the survey part, because I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that said, well, wait, you did a survey last summer. And the results of that survey were like, I don't know, 70-75% people wanted to go back to school full time. And that didn't seem to have any impact on the decision. So, I mean, I guess that's, you know, we say we're going to do a survey, but we haven't gone by any surveys that we've taken so far. So, I mean, I guess that's what kind of concerns me.
Okay. I fully expect to use our survey information to make decisions.
Okay.
You all set, Jill, or? Bob, you had something you want to ask?
I do have some questions. First of all, we only did one survey, and you're right, it didn't end up that the people that wanted to go back full on got their choice or got what they had asked for, but that was because of the circumstances that were laid out by Ron earlier. But but that's not my question. My questions are, I know that I read an article about taking temperatures, and I know we have a huge amount of kids. Has that been discussed at all as a mitigation?
Yeah,
strategy?
you know, I'm gonna turn this. I'm gonna go to Marina on this, because that was a big discussion in our operations committee back in the summer, I believe. So, Marina, why don't you?
Of course. So Denise, I can answer that, and I can tell you that based on all of the information, the most up-to-date information that was just updated by the CDC, I think it was February 11th or 12th, so recently, they still do not recommend universal screening as a way to mitigate. Of course, we do ask our families and our staff members to take their temperatures at home, but that is not a strong recommendation by the CDC. Often we get this question, why do we have temperature checks at Little Turtle? Remember, Little Turtle's under different guidelines. Little Turtle does have to work under the LARA or the state regulation guidelines, as well as the recommendations that we have. But at this point, we are still recommending that our families complete that screener at home. They monitor and they refrain from sending their children to school if they have any COVID-like symptoms, or they've been exposed to someone who has COVID, or they have a family member in the home that's awaiting COVID testing results.
Okay, I hope that our community complies and that they aren't sending their kids to school sick. Sometimes if you read social media, you don't get the feeling that that's sometimes what people do. The other thing is, earlier in the year when we were discussing going back to the elementary hybrid plan, there was no SAC available at some of the elementary schools. I really cannot support a plan that there is no SAC available to one whole building. I mean, can we combine buildings? Is there something we can look at? I don't think we can say we're going to send kids back full time and not have some kind of daycare opportunity for families.
So again, I can answer that. We do have one building at this time that does not have a director. We have not been successful in finding a director for that building. We are looking at the possibility of combining, but again, SAC is under the same guidelines as preschool. We're under LARA guidelines, so we do have to have certain parameters in place where we have student information on site, we have access to their health plans, and we have staff that's trained to understand and accommodate those things. So there are some complicating factors in having SAC off-site. They're not things we can say at this time we can't work through, but we're trying to see if that's a possibility, if we could provide that opportunity to that one school who does not have a SAC director at this time. But I cannot guarantee that that will be in place by March 10th.
Okay, that does, I've received some emails from parents, and that was a concern that I've heard repeatedly, and I understand it, and I do feel for those parents. And I hate to see one of our schools, and I know it's not anyone's fault, but I don't really want to see one of our schools out of 21 schools that can't provide some kind of after-school program for kids to be engaged in, because that would be, in my opinion, not equitable. But, and the other thing, buses. So when they get on a bus, I mean, we're going to have a lot of kids on a bus. Even if we go to a shortened day and we don't have lunch or whatever, or a modified schedule. So buses, they have to wear masks. Do we do nothing? I mean, other than them wearing a mask and hoping their parents didn't send them? We're going to have a lot of kids on a bus. So what's our, I mean, how, we're not going to really be able to use any mitigation strategies there. Is that correct?
Well, we do. When students get on the bus, they're expected to use the hand sanitizer that's on every bus. So they do that before they get on. The number of students on our buses will be lower in the past because we still have the same number of bus runs, and we have a lot of students in the CVVA. So our numbers, and there's a wide range in buses. I am not going to say that some buses aren't going to have a lot of kids on it.
Right.
But there is a wide range of the number of kids on buses. Also, what we'll be able to do is once the weather warms up a little, we will be able to open the windows on the bus at least a little to ensure that air flows on the buses. So those are some things that we can do.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of, this is just a statement. I believe it's time for our kids to go back to school full time. I think that we need to find a way to make that happen. And I am committed to the dates that you've put forward around to return the kids to school. I do want to make a comment also about our virtual program, which I think is really excellent. I spoke to parents that I know from other districts whose kids are in their virtual program. And when I heard what their virtual program consisted of, I think our community, the people that are in CVVA there would be an outcry for the type of education. These are tutorial education. There's no teacher in front of the kids all day long. They get 2 45-minute Zoom meetings a week, not one a day, but a week. And there's no teachers that are directly working with the kids. There's mentoring going on. But if you want to do comparisons between school districts, I think that our CVVA program is excellent. And as Robert indicated, I think the teachers have, even if they're teaching both ways, it is a sacrifice for them, and they're still stepping up and doing a phenomenal job in that. So I think even though it's been challenging for us, I still think we made the best choice for the education value that we're providing for our students. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, one of my things for matter of clarification, Ron, you and Bob were speaking about, what, and you didn't want to really say exactly how you think this is because you're still working and putting it together. But you said regarding, Jill mentioned fall full time, you said full on. So I just want to make the distinction. the full-time we're talking about in March is maybe abbreviated class periods or no lunch for secondary, or whereas in the fall, when you say full on, that's traditional, regular day is what you're saying. I mean, based on
exactly
what happens with this pandemic between now and then, but basically I just want to clarify that full on versus through March is different.
Right. So a full on, and I guess we could call it traditional, means what we've always done up to this year. What we're looking at now is a modification of that in order to increase safety, but still, I want to stress, will be designed to be a robust program for our students. It will be significantly, and the details aren't worked out yet, so I'm careful not to get ahead of anything, but it'll be a significant increase in the number of hours of education in person per week. And I think that's what's important. And if you look at how teachers are forced in person to teach very differently now than they have in the past. We have spent a lot of money and a lot of time training our teachers to structure learning in a cooperative manner, that kids have opportunities to work together. We have spent the last few years training our teachers. They can't do that right now in an in-person. So what we do now looks different, but what we will promote or present for our students going forward is a robust plan. And I want to make one final comment about this because this is so important, and I think this needs to be said for our bus drivers. When I talked about bus safety, I want to add our buses are sanitized between every single run. So, I mean, that's another mitigation factor that we have in place, and our bus drivers do that. So that kind of has changed their how they conduct their duties on a daily basis, because they do that number of times a day. So with that, I'll end there, Frank, if that's it.
Last thing too, Ron, the board's been getting a lot of emails from parents is about remediation, summer school. I know you are still working with the ISD and other superintendents around the county to put that together, but could you just give us an update or some kind of indication how that's going to kind of look or come together?
Sure. I think what I want to do is turn it over to Walt Kozlowski. Walt, if you could unmute yourself and talk about summer school and the plans and how that's looking going forward. Because I know you're working with the ISD, but we have some of our own plans in place too. So if you could just give an overview.
Yeah, no problem. Right now, really, we're just in the exploratory phases of what we might be able to offer. We want to do whatever we can to offer a program that will help with some of the instructional loss that students have experienced. The ISD has a number of programs. We've also run our own programs over the last couple of years. So we have a couple of meetings scheduled in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be better prepared with an answer, I believe, by the next board meeting.
So it is on our radar. It's not something that we're not.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it has been for a couple of months. It's just taken time to kind of flesh out and figure out exactly what it might look like.
Sure. I just want to reassure our parents out there that we are looking into that, and we'll have a program for that, as we head into the end of the year.
Definitely.
I had one more comment or question. I've received several emails, I'm sure all of you have, that kind of express concerns about their kids being behind, and that they have their reading levels are not right, or they're supposed to be getting some services and they're not getting their services through virtual or through hybrid and or virtual. And I find, is that true? I mean, don't most of our schools are running like MTSS still, correct? With their students?
Yes,
Yeah.
at the elementary level, yes.
Denise, I really think on parents like that, I mean, because I know that's been a topic of conversation with both Paul and Marina, with their building level administrators. And when I hear things like that, it really kind of alarms me, because that should be a part of our program, and that should not be missed. Right. I know as a former building principal, I would hear those things, and you certainly want to address them right away. Those parents, and maybe they're telling you they've talked to the principal, and they need to be directed to the principals.
Yeah, that's
If they tell you they have, they need to be directed to Mr. Sibley or Ms. Licari,
that's what I do.
because those are things we don't let lie.
Right.
Those are important to us. So there should be no excuse. I mean, we understand instruction looks different, and maybe some of our endpoints are going to be a little bit different, but that doesn't mean students shouldn't receive the services they need or require as they go through this year. There's a way to do these things.
I agree. I just,
Yeah.
based on my experience, even though I don't have my own children, I've seen this work with my grandchildren's classes. So I just wondered, I was kind of shocked so I did refer them to the principal, but I
And
was
Denise, if I could just add, just so you're aware at the elementary level, every building schedule has time carved out for MTSS for every single grade level. However, I must add that because you have time carved out does not mean that a student has to exit the room or leave that room to see somebody else for support. MTSS time means that you alter the instruction, you target the instruction to provide targeted support on a specific skill or need. So it could just occur during that time in the classroom. It could be that you pull in additional support staff to help, or some students are pulled out into the pod to separate small groups. But it looks a little different in every building depending on the staff and depending on the skill or need that a student or students may be working on during a time period. It does not mean that it will look exactly the same every single day. It will depend on the skill that's being targeted. So just like Ron had mentioned, if there is a concern, then that family member should really reach out to the building principal, but they can also start with the classroom teacher to say what is happening during MTSS and what support is being given.
Okay, thank you. I've been referring them to the principal, but I will continue, or I'll tell them to escalate it to either one of you. One other thing, and now I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, okay, it's gone. I can't remember what I was going to ask. Okay, it's not coming back to me. I'll have to think about it, and I'll send somebody an email if I remember. Okay, thanks.
Anything else from the board for Mr. Roberts or our administration regarding this return to school update to us this evening?
I have one more question.
Absolutely.
Mr. Roberts, so what you're saying is that probably within a week, so we're shooting for like March 1st, we might have a special meeting to go over the new plan?
I hope to have a meeting scheduled, and I'll coordinate that through Mr. Bednard for the early part of next week.
Okay, and that would be to try and get the kids back to face.
We hope to have a plan together that we can bring to you for your approval.
Okay.
I remembered my question. It's a miracle. NHS. So do we have an active NHS group of students? Because I've had several parents talk about the cost of tutoring as part of their frustration, and I understand. And I've directed them to talk to their teacher and to contact both high schools to see if they could get some, student help in tutoring. And I assumed they would coordinate with the teachers to get the kids, to tutor them with what they needed. So we do have students this year that are providing that, correct?
Well, we do have active NHS chapters, yes, but our NHS chapters are not solely committed to tutoring. So sometimes that is a challenge. So that is one thing that they've always offered in the past for students who are able and have a schedule that accommodates that. So what I can't say is every kid in NHS is dedicated to tutoring. So I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know that if they have kids who are able to tutor, that they would still be offering that.
Thank you.
No problem.
So they would, if they contacted had the teacher contact their high school, or they did, if there was availability, they would be assisted. If there wasn't, they would just tell them that they don't have any students that are available right now, correct?
Yeah, most likely. I think the two high schools might handle it slightly different. So if you need further information on that, I can get you some details from each school to see how they would handle it specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ron, I think we're good on that. Anything under curriculum tonight?
Sure. We do have another topic, and I feel bad because I think that these conversations we have about what we're doing this school year are intense. I think they're draining. I mean, it's a lot to think about. And then sometimes when we get done with these conversations, I turn it over to Dr. Brodsky, who's going to talk about school accreditation. And it's like, I hate to put him in that spot, but this is an important topic for you to know and for our district to understand. So just as a little bit of an intro here, we are accredited through Advanced Ed. We received our last accreditation, which I'm not sure, it's either 5 or 6 years ago, through Advanced Ed. They did a site visit, and if you were a board member then, you participated in some feedback sessions. They visited our schools. And Advanced Ed now is going by the name of Cognia, and they are an international organization. So we might possibly be the only district in Macomb County. There might be another, I'm not sure, maybe Don will know that, who does school accreditation through Advanced Ed or Cognia. And this is really important to our district. It's nice to have someone who is dedicated to school accreditation, and you know that they'll be a consistent and they'll be there. So it's easier to understand, their standards and what it is we need to achieve to be accredited. I would also like to recognize Dr. Brodsky for his leadership in this area. It is an absolute ton of organization, a ton of paperwork, of coordination, of working with building administrators to make sure that, their reports indicate what needs to be reported in these reports. So, I mean, it is a big job, and Don does a wonderful job with it. So I'm going to turn it over to Don, and he's going to talk about our upcoming sessions with Cognia. Don, if you're talking, you're muted.
How's that? Is that better?
That's perfect.
Okay, got 2 mute buttons on this thing. So thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. Thanks for those kind words. In the midst of our planning and our preparation and our scheduling to prepare for face-to-face instruction, we also have an accreditation review that's coming up, as Mr. Roberts mentioned. That's coming up on March 21st to the 24th through Cognia, our current accrediting agency. So tonight I would like to just give you hopefully a brief overview so that you're prepared and you have a good idea of where we're going with this particular review. So if you could change the slide, please, Sarah. So tonight's objectives are to provide information for you to develop an understanding of the relationship between continuous improvement and accreditation, to be aware of the Cognia protocol, and have a better understanding of how the accreditation review process is the foundation for continuous improvement at the district and school level. Change, please. Here's a little background. Formed in 1895 as the North Central Agency, which accredited colleges and universities, to Advanced Ed Improvement Network in 2012, and finally Cognia in 2019. The various incarnations of this accrediting agency continue to provide services to educational institutions in the United States, schools and systems under the U.S. Department of Defense, Puerto Rico, and 72 countries. Just as the organization has changed over the past 125 years, the process of continuous improvement has evolved as well. Please change. So the purpose of the accreditation review are for the review team to provide feedback about the quality of our school district and the next steps to follow. The team is responsible to determine the degree Chippewa Valley meets the Cognia performance standards, and we'll use those findings from the team to further our continuous improvement efforts. The outcomes of the engagement review are that during the review visits, the team conducts interviews with a range of stakeholders, reviews documents and student performance data, and makes professional observations. The team is responsible for making an accreditation recommendation to be reviewed by the Cognia Accreditation Office. So, and the goal is to be nationally recognized as an accredited school system. If you'll change, please. So in the spring of 2016, Chippewa Valley earned the distinction of system accreditation through the Advanced Ed Improvement Network, which is, as Mr. Roberts mentioned, now called Cognia. This accreditation signifies that the district, and in turn each school, meets high quality standards and participates in a rigorous and ongoing school improvement process. System accreditation is up for review every 5 years, and that's why I'm speaking to you this evening in preparation for our next review. Accreditation institutions implement a continuous improvement process utilizing the Cognia performance standards. If you'll change, please. The accreditation engagement review team that will be virtually visiting Chippewa Valley is comprised of 6 members, either retired from education or are current practitioners. Our lead evaluator is a retired superintendent who's currently working as an interim superintendent in Indiana. A team member will be assigned as an associate lead evaluator, and there are 4 additional team members, 2 of which are from districts in the state of Michigan. I just found out the other day. I've met with our lead evaluator, Steve Epperson, numerous times via Zoom to prepare for this review. If you'll change, please. The Cognia performance standards measure the quality of learning and instruction by providing a set of evaluative criteria that lays the foundation for school improvement planning and implementation. The standards are based on best practices and research on driving institutional improvement and change. There are 3 domains that will be reviewed: leadership capacity, learning capacity, and resources capacity. We're committed to implementing these standards through a school improvement process that includes curriculum review, multi-tier system of supports, data-driven decision-making, and the sustainability of programs and materials. Change, please. So prior to the visit, the external review team will have the opportunity to review evidence from the district and all of our schools. The evidence includes the executive summary, which is a document where we tell the team who we are as a district. The 3 performance standards that each have a number of substandards that are called key concepts. Standard 1, leadership capacity, has 11 key concepts. Standard 2, learning capacity, 12 key concepts. And standard 3, research capacity, has 8 key concepts or substandards. There's also survey data through our administration of Cognia's eProve surveys that are certified for validity and reliability. Assurances that the system and its schools follow Cognia's policies and procedures. Student performance data that include national, state, and local assessments such as SAT, MSTEP, and NWEA. School and district improvement plans that are 3 to 5 year plans submitted annually to the state and to Cognia. And focus group interviews that will actually take place during the visit. So throughout the visit, the team will review the standards and the evidence they receive from the interviews, reviewing the school and the district documents, as well as their discussions and deliberations. Our responsibility as a district is to make sure that all schools and the district provide the team all the required information. I've been providing data and documentation to the lead evaluator for some time now, and the team has begun to review our information via the web. Change, please. So quality evidence has been provided to the team through a special SharePoint site we developed with assistance from Sarah and the technology department. Evidence and artifacts were provided by all schools, as well as the business department, technology, human resources, community relations, special services, and educational services. The documents are organized in a dashboard concept with links that are in the SharePoint site for easy navigation. So by clicking Standard 1 Leadership Capacity, you'll be taken directly, the team will be taken directly to the Standard 1 Leadership Capacity for the district link site. Change, please. So what do we do? What do we need to do to be prepared for the external review? Well, here's the schedule for March 21st through the 24th. Over the 4 days of their virtual visit, they'll be using Zoom. The team will have a full schedule as they conduct focus group interviews, meet with district personnel and members of the Board of Education, examine the district's evidence and artifacts, determine what they will include in their exit report, and finally, meet with administration on the final day. Change, please. The engagement review team will conduct focus group interviews via Zoom throughout the visit. As you can see, a wide range of members of our school community will have the opportunity to speak to the team. The interviews begin with a brief overview of the purpose of the interviews and the role of the engagement team. The interviews will take approximately 45 minutes and will focus on questions and discussions about the work of the district. Parents, community members, partners, and students in grades 3 through 12 from across the district have been invited to participate in the focus group interviews. Teachers and principals representing all schools in the district will be interviewed during these focus group conversations. Change, please. So the focus group interviews, as well as the review of the documents, the performance standards, executive summaries, the student performance data, and the survey data will all be viewed through Cognia's I3 rubric. The areas of engagement, implementation, results, sustainability, and embeddedness will be evaluated by the review team. The I3 rubric is a performance assessment rubric. It's a tool to measure the degree of impact of practices, programs, or procedures. It's the instrument the team uses to measure the degree to which our school system meets the Cognia performance standards. Change, please. You know, more than just a single event every 5 years, the engagement review provides a sustainable, stable, and systematic process of continuous improvement and objective, meaningful, evidence-based feedback that enhances student learning. We will use the findings from the team to further our continuous improvement efforts. Change, please. So on the final day of the review, the team will meet with the superintendent and administration to provide feedback on the visit. The external review team makes their recommendation based on their findings, their deliberations, and assessment approximately 30 business days following the review. The team does not make decisions on accreditation status. Once the lead evaluator submits the final report, it will be reviewed by the Cognia Accreditation Office. But that's not all. The accreditation office then submits the report with a recommendation to the Cognia Global Commission, which meets 4 times per year and acts on all external reports and accreditation recommendations. The commission makes the final decision regarding the granting of accreditation. Within 6 weeks, the district will receive a notification of the external review results, and the Global Commission's action will be shared with Mr. Roberts. Once we receive the results, they will be provided to you, the board, and the Chippewa Valley community. The belief is that sharing the results of the review with a wide range of stakeholders helps to educate the broader community about the system's accreditation and engagement in continuous improvement. Change the slide, please. At this time, I'd like to take the opportunity to extend a big thank you to all of the teachers and the administrators whose hard work gathering evidence, analyzing survey and student performance data will give an excellent snapshot of all the great things that happen in our district every day. Your hard work is recognized and appreciated. I'm confident that the accreditation engagement team will experience the very best that Chippewa Valley has to offer our school community. It's been an unprecedented year in education, and our teachers and administrators have risen to the occasion. For that, I thank you. At this point, I'd be more than happy to entertain any questions you may have about the review.
Don, so I was involved 5 years ago when it was advanced ed. And I went to, I think, 1 or 2 of the school site, and they wanted board members on those committees or those teams. So this year they're doing this Cognia is doing it a little different than advanced ed did. So they want the board members to be interviewed as a group.
There will be 6 members, so there'll be interviews. It'll be broken up. So you'll be interviewed either individually or in pairs. We have to be careful about having too large of a group. So they'll meet with you. I would think it could be individual, being that there are 6 members. So it might be a 2, and we can, it'll be a consistent time. So your particular interviews are from 10 to 10:45 on that Monday, the 22nd.
Okay.
So if just kind of, if you could mark your calendars on that. I believe I sent you
I already put it on there. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, thanks, Don. I was just curious.
Sure.
So are they still doing site visits though, correct?
No, there will be, Cognia is not doing site visits. It's strictly, everything is virtual. So it'll all be Zoom. So they normally, a team will go into a classroom and use what they call the Elliott tool. And what they do is they observe what activities the students are doing. Unfortunately, they're unable to use that tool. They're unable to come into the buildings. So what they're really basing a lot of evidence, a lot of what their perception is going to be is what they hear from us, and what they hear from our teachers, and what they hear from you, and what they hear from our administrative team, and what they hear from Mr. Roberts. So the interviews are a little bit more intense because they're taking the place of the Elliott. And then also they'll be reviewing our documentation as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're muted, Frank. You're still muted, Frank.
There you go.
There we go. Anything else for curriculum?
No, that's it this evening.
Okay, I'll move on to item K, of and by the board. Board members, anything to add this evening?
I had a couple things, Frank.
Yeah, go ahead,
just real quick things. I brought it up before, and I mean, I'd be open to getting together like a parent committee or something like that. I would head up if nobody else wants to, just to get some input from the parents a little better than what we have now. Another thing is, I guess I had brought it up before too, is I would want to put forward to try and, even after this virtual is done, to keep our meetings recorded or somehow, so that the parents don't have to be there in person. They can see it. I've had a lot of input on that. A lot of people saying that they would love to have it so they could look at it instead of having to go to actual meetings. So if we can keep somehow recording them or putting them on YouTube as we do, or whatever we could do, put them on our channel, something like that. Another thing is this, I guess I would go back to the other thing is, I've had a lot of people comment on, I guess, just to put it straight, that a lot of people are saying, well, the board wants to send, or they don't want to send the kids back to school or whatever, but they won't go themselves in person for the meetings. And people I don't know if people realize, but the governor, I believe it is, has said we can't do in-person meetings. We have to do a full virtual meetings until, what is that? I think it's March 30th. So that's why we are doing virtual meetings. I personally would love to go back to face-to-face meetings, but right now we're not allowed to, and I just wanted people to know that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think we all feel the same about getting back to, I don't know about the board office, but at least the auditorium at Chippewa in person. There's no question about it. I don't think any of the board opposes that. We're just waiting for the new ruling by the governor to to allow that legally. Good point, though. I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing I wanted to bring up, so we're gonna have a special meeting. It sounds like early next week. Open Meetings Act gives us, we have to give 18 hours notice to the community on any, as you all know, special meeting we choose to hold. So we'll give, I guess, at least a day's notice, depending on when Mr. Roberts contacts me. I plan on probably by the middle of next week or something like that. All depends how it goes. But as soon as I get word, I will give you word. We're going to call for a meeting probably a day later, depending on when that message comes out. So let the community know also, as we always do. One other thing I kind of wanted to bring up on this tonight was one of the community callers had mentioned that they felt they were censored last week and were not allowed to talk.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. I'm thinking more of as a technological issue or something, or maybe he had come late to the meeting and wanted to speak, or what it was. We do have that 6 o'clock cutoff for signing up to address the board at community comment. That is something we've done here to accommodate the virtual board meeting. We certainly want to hear from everybody. When we get back to in-person learning, anybody that wants to, when we get back to in-person board meetings, where we can have our community actually attend in person with us again. Anybody that wants to show up and wants to fill out the form and pass it over to Ms. Adlam, we would be happy to hear from you. So I heard different emails have said that we have some kind of conspiracy going amongst us, big secret thing to try to censor certain people out. We want to hear from. That's not the case here, folks, at all. So we want to hear from our community. We appreciate hearing from our community. So I just want to call that. And I don't know, Ron, if somebody could follow up with that. I think the gentleman's name was Mr. Pizzi Ali. I'm sorry, I can't find the pronunciation, but if somebody could follow up and see where he thought why he was being censored, because that's not the case. We don't screen nothing. So, I mean, if that were the case, you would have all beautiful, happy callers calling in, complimenting us all day long, every board meeting, but you can see clearly that's not the case. So if somebody could follow up with that gentleman, just to make sure that he wasn't slighted anyway, and that'd be greatly appreciated. That's it for me.
Just Frank, I'm going to make one comment. I believe the cutoff time for registering to speak to the board on board meeting nights is 5:30. Is that right, Sarah?
Yes, it's an hour before the general meeting time
so
to give us time to get the information out.
And I just want to, I want to make that so that's clear. And they can register right on the website if they wish to address the board. It's 5:30, and part of the reason is we have an hour before, but we also have subcommittee meetings starting at 6, so we need to do a cutoff in time to coordinate everything. So, but yes, I will talk to Sarah. We'll reach out to this parent and find out what's going on, because I don't know exactly what happened in this case, but I concur with you. We never try to, if someone wants to speak, we're here to listen. So we'll check into that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else by the board?
I don't know if this is something I should even bring up, but I'm concerned. You just talked about conspiracy stuff, Frank, and one of the comments about a certain thing that happened, and that we should be doing a full investigation. And I don't know if we should say anything to our community that there's always, more than perhaps to the story than just one person's point of view. So I just, I don't know what we're required to do, but anyway, I just thought, I don't want them thinking it's a conspiracy. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not. So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I mean, we know that we're talking to one community comments regarding Ms. Pyden. Yeah, we received a complaint by a parent. I believe it was following our last board meeting, and he sent us an email through the Chippewa Valley District email system and asked that be considered a formal complaint. I've handed that to Mr. Robertson, asked him to give it to council to review. But we know this goes for any board member, we don't have any kind of punitive action we could take against a board member. So that is left up to the governor. And there is a means and process for those folks to make a complaint to the governor who would review it. So
I'm not looking to do anything.
council says on this, but yeah, I mean, there's not much the board could do if they had the purpose of wanting to do something. You know, if a majority of the board felt something should be done, there's nothing to be done. So they're better off contacting the governor and having her review that issue if they feel it is. You know, it's not. I'll wait to hear from our counselors as far as what, if anything, we could do with a formal complaint. We've never had that filed.
I wasn't supporting a formal complaint. I was just kind of conveying that there's always, you know, there's always a little more, there's always more to the story. So people, you know, just realize that we are doing the best we can do, and we are here to serve our community, and that's what we intend to do. And whatever we do or don't do in terms of anything like that, we take their comments seriously, but they should remember that, you know, maybe everything they hear is not accurate also. So
yeah, I agree with you. And I think Ms. Blaine has stated this also to us in the past, that there's a lot of social media groups that are out there that talk to other community members, other parents in the community. And and those, a lot of those groups, Ms. Blaine is able to kind of follow along with the dialogue. And if it becomes incorrect, she can pop in there and say, hey, this is Diane Blaine, or you know, that's not true. You should be talking to your building principal or whatever. Some of these groups have locked her out though, so she can't.
Right. No, I know.
Traffic, and as a result, a lot of the misinformation does get broadcast, and regardless of the spectrum of, for instance, returning to school or staying remote. So I mean, I'd ask those groups to let Ms. Blaine in there and let her review that so that she can correct anything on the district's behalf that's being put out. Just a request. I don't know, Ms. Blaine, if you want to comment further on that, but that is one thing that would be helpful. Okay. Anyways, okay. That's about it. Anything else from the board? Okay, nothing further. I thank everybody for their time this evening and for the reports from our staff and our administration. We look forward to hearing from Mr. Roberts very soon on this change of instruction. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Moved by Ms. Aquino.
I'll support.
Support, I'm sorry.
I'll support.
Well, support by Mr. Wojtovich. All right. All those in favor by roll call vote, Ms. Pyden.
Ms. Aquino?
Yes.
Mr. Wojtovich?
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko?
Yes.
Mr. Bednard?
Yes.
Ms. Demink-Zek?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Okay. The meeting will adjourn at 9:01 p.m. Thank you again, everybody. We'll be talking to you shortly, I'm sure. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.